Okay. So hi.
Hi.
That is Eileen Gallagher. Yes.
Yeah.
So you have worked at PHS. You worked at PHS for 33 years,
Yes.
including a large stint of that with the Pennsylvania Horticultural Society. I'm just gonna go ahead and do a little bit of rote introduction now, though. If that's okay.
Okay.
So this is Joe Maycook, who currently works at PHS, the Pennsylvania Horticultural Society. And today's date is November 4th, 2021. We are on location at the Norris Square Neighborhood Project office at 2149 North Howard? 2141 North Howard. And at North Howard Street, right next to the square. And so this interview is being conducted for the Cultivating Community Gardens Histories Project on behalf of PHS and the Norris Square Neighborhood Project. And so, again, I'm here with Eileen Gallagher. So before we get into your history with Norris Square and your tenure with PHS, I wanted to just quickly ask you a little bit about yourself. So where did you grow up, and did you or your neighbors have gardens there?
Well, actually, where I grew up was a very compact, small neighborhood, and there were no gardens. There was really nothing but concrete. I mean, that was early on where I lived. And then, when I was about 12 or 13, my family, we moved to this small little town, still in Pennsylvania, but it was a 4-story house because we had 8 kids in my family, and with a huge backyard. And my father worked for it was called A&P food stores at that time. So now that there was space where we could grow our own food, my father started this vegetable garden, which was the first time I've ever grown vegetables. So, I was like 12 or something like that. And that was the beginning of my, real horticulture experience, and ever since then, that's what I've been doing is, working in horticulture or helping people work in horticulture or, just growing whatever I could grow. So, yeah, it's in my blood.
Yeah. Great. So, quick point of clarification. When you say you first were in a small neighborhood, do you remember which city that was? Or?
Well, I was in this small little town called Clifton Heights.
Oh, okay.
It's, in Pennsylvania.
Okay. So you were just living, so that in your second place similarly was just in Pennsylvania. Okay.
Yeah.
But not in Philadelphia or the greater Philadelphia area necessarily. No. Okay. And so then, what did you grow in that first garden? Do you recall?
Mostly lettuces, broccoli, cabbage, what else? Beans, lots of green beans. That's good. Yeah, that's pretty good. And then you?
Yeah. And so that was kind of the start of your horticulture experience.
Right, yeah.
Yeah. And so how did you come from that to the horticultural position with PHS, working with community gardens?
Well, I actually, for almost a year, traveled around the world, and because I was sort of in between jobs, so I took trains, I met people, I like traveled all throughout Europe, stayed in youth hostels. And my family is my real Irish family. I went to Ireland and stayed with them for like 2 weeks. And they grew a lot of their own food. And then after that experience, I was accepted into the Longwood Garden Professional Gardener Program. So, and that was a 2-year program. So I lived at Longwood for 2 years, and which was such an amazing experience to be around, all of these horticulturists and to really live and breathe horticulture. It was just so amazing that I was accepted, and like my girlfriend that I used to hang out with, she got accepted, and then I met so many people from all over the United States through that program, that when I was done that, it was another couple months that I traveled around. And then when you get the chance to travel, you take it, and then that's when I figured, well, I better get a job, so then I applied to PHS. So I had to write that down, 11/11/20. It was 1987. That's when I started at PHS.
And what was your title? Do you remember?
What was my title?
Well, you don't have to remember.
It was more, I was doing more, it was sort of more community organizing. But then, because of the areas where we were, like Point Breeze area, there weren't a lot of gardens. So, wherever there was space, that we would have, go through the council person, to make sure that if we were going to be, greening the space, that, at least there'd be, a couple of years that, it would be preserved in order to, use it and grow vegetables and, work with community. So, that was sort of hit or miss. It all depended on what was happening within that specific area, and because development started to come in, because, the city got to be the hot place to live, and, so if you were going to use property, you really had to make sure that you had some kind of permission or agreements. And, I don't know the time frame for NGA, Neighborhood Gardens Association, but that changed everything, when NGA was able to permanently preserve property. And, that's sort of, it was also the linchpin for the Keystone gardens, the really big gardens, that then we could preserve these community spaces, that would be learning opportunities, gathering opportunities, funding opportunities. It made a huge difference in moving forward and really have the community know that place was theirs, and that's what they still are, such gathering spaces, and places to show off, what could really happen and how these gardens affect the community, because they're there permanently.
That's good. I do want to ask you about Keystone Gardens program later on. But I wanted to, I guess, get back again to 1987, when you're first coming into this position, community organizing. It sounds like a lot. It sounds like a lot of it was less horticulture. Well, it sounds like a lot of it involved legal or kind of like political and organizational, like more than the direct planting, whatnot.
Well, I mean, there was a lot of planting, but you had to be strategic about what gardens you really wanted to look at preservation spaces. Some we would know that if we get a year out of this space, that's a year that somebody can grow vegetables there, or use as a gathering space. But once that you had to really work the political end and understand that unless it was preserved and all of the steps that you had to go through in order to get a garden preserved, that those were the sites that would really continue and provide for the community.
Okay. So that was kind of something that you kind of got early on from your work with Point Breeze, like 1987, in the late 80s. So in the early 1990s, I believe you came to work here at Norris Square. So could you talk a little bit about that process?
Well, it was a little difficult because I don't speak Spanish, or any other, language. But when, you have the same goal, as, you really want to help the community to express themselves, and their culture, and that. I think that was what was so amazing and fabulous, and just incredible for me to be immersed into the Puerto Rican Latino culture, which I had no experience with, and just the amount of brainstorming that we were doing, and looking at the gardens, and how Iris and the staff had all of the Puerto Rican names, Las Parcelas, and after I found oh yeah, many parcels, okay, that makes sense to me, but I didn't really know Spanish. But it was such a learning opportunity for me, and to to work with a different culture, and to really go to Puerto Rico with Iris.
When was that? Do you remember?
No, I don't remember the exact dates.
Okay. Yeah.
Iris probably knows about
yeah,
that.
Iris probably.
And
can tell us,
and to just hang out, and just have that connection. It just made a big difference, in really understanding sort of the nuances of Norris Square, and it's and I would never, it's dictate or anything, it's always a collaboration,
Yeah. So I was told that you helped design Las Parcelas. So could you talk through that process specifically a little bit?
Well, I don't know. It's I mean, I don't know if I was the designer, but it was more just trying to make sure there was as much gardening space as possible, but working through the staff and with Iris, really get the flavor of Puerto Rico, and
so this was after the trip to Puerto Rico.
Yeah. And it just, I may have designed it on a piece of paper, these are the dimensions, let's make the plots so big, how many can we fit in there? Because, a lot of people wanted to garden, and, and keep, the cultural component, which was, really important. And that's why the gardens fortunately kept on expanding, and how Colobo is there, and the little cottages and the sheds, which look like little houses, and it was all through Iris and Tomasita, and to let their ideas come out, and how can we take all of these ideas and incorporate it into the gardens that express them, their culture,
I actually want to go back. I know I've been skipping around the chronology a lot.
Because I it's all, I don't have exact dates, or anything.
And that's fine.
Yeah.
But so I just wanted to ask, do you remember the first time when you came to, what is today Las Parcelas? What it was like? What did you see, or hear there? Or you could alternatively, if you don't remember that as well, if you remember meeting Iris and Tomasita.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Either of those.
Yeah. I'm trying to remember if I don't think there were houses on the major parcels. It was just sort of blank open space that was sort of maintained, after it got cleaned up some, and then it was just sort of maintained until we could really make sure that, we were going to be able to get permission to use the garden, the site, to start developing. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And so then that was when once you got permission, you and PHS were able to provide supplies.
Yeah.
To do a lot of the built environment aspects.
Well, we might, we would have funding to do it, mm-hmm. but most of the labor came through the community, the local community, to make it's theirs, it's their garden, and they know. Iris would say, "Oh, we're going to build a casita," and they're okay. What's that? What's the casita? And then this little house would show up with a little porch and a deck, and and then when you went inside, it was totally decorated. When Iris she's just amazing. The way with her ability to express the culture. And I would just be blown away, because, I would be working in Norris Square for a certain amount of time. Then I'd have to go over, to Point Breeze, or, go up to North Philly, or, wherever.
Mm-hmm.
So, then I would come back, and it was like, oh my gosh, look what you did. And it's all painted, these bright colors. It just kept on evolving and evolving, to the point where it just became a place where you really wanted to show people, this is what community in this area looks like, and this is how it works, and everybody's contributing, to this.
Do you remember the process or the moment in which it was declared a Greene Countrie Towne, Norris Square, 1993. Were you involved with that at all? I guess.
Yeah. I mean, like, because I started 87. How did we get to be Greene Countrie Towne? See, that I'm not so sure of. Yeah.
I guess it wasn't as important for your job as just making sure the garden could be maintained, expanded. But so, let me see.
Yeah, because I can't remember whether there was grant dollars that came through, to start to create these Greene Countrie Townes. I don't remember that piece. Yeah.
Okay. Okay. Okay, but so around 1993, it becomes a Greene Countrie Towne. Las Parcelas is developed.
Is that what it was? 93?
Yeah. Yes, there's a stone there. That was part of the reason why I thought it would be nice to have the, interview there. But this is good as well. And probably better for everyone's health. So, I wanted to. Do you remember anything about the development of the mural there? Or was that not part of your purview?
No, well, of course, Iris and Tomasita and the community were all involved in, what the mural would be. And, we just, made sure that, mural arts, when they came in, like, they stabilized anything that needed to be stabilized. And then, the design came through, Iris and Tomasita.
Yeah, that checks out. I was going to, I guess, ask. But you've also mentioned now, El Colobo, and obviously the other gardens that Norris Square had, and continues to have.
Yeah.
So how did your involvement with Norris Square continue change or develop over the years, as you were also dealing with all these gardens in North Philadelphia, Point Breeze, etc.?
Yeah. Well, it was when I would be working in, Norris Square, it was pretty much, that was the major focus. Every day I'd be in Norris Square, especially when construction was going on, or, bringing it all together, and making sure that, it was done properly. It was done according to, the standards that you have to meet, and that, it's, I would always check in with Iris and Tomasita and whoever was at Norris Square, Sister Carol, whoever the director was, and say, okay, this is what the stage we're at, we're gonna move on to the next stage, and do you have any questions or other ideas, or, is this okay, just to keep that dialogue going all the time, and that's what made, each of, say, the Greene Countrie Townes unique, because it represented where it was and the community that, helped to create that,
Okay.
Point Breeze is totally different than Norris Square.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's good that they all have green spaces.
Yeah. But say it was more difficult to get spaces in the Point Breeze and sort of that that community, than here.
What made it easier here?
Because the spaces that were available were that was it. There wasn't any other, within walking distance of, the center here, and, like that Palethorpe Street, because of the size of the street, in terms of like trucks and whatever, like many, like trucks and things didn't go up that street because it was too small, but it was like sort of the perfect walkway. And like when a lot of the older houses that had come down and left these open spaces, it was like, oh, this is perfect. We can just like walk right in here and, get all the permissions and, start to really look at how is this going to evolve as a garden.
Whereas in Norris Square, the point where you were working from did not have, Point Breeze, did not have like kind of that walkway plus vacant lot combination.
No, Point Breeze is, pretty big section, and like in the early years, there were sections of Point Breeze that, you could just go right in there and, start developing if that's what the community wanted. But then it sort of became, one of the hot communities a little bit later on. And that's when, we really were working with Neighborhood Gardens Trust and to make sure that, before Jenny, I'm trying to remember what her name was. Can't remember her name, but
I don't remember either.
Yeah.
But so that was...
Yeah. So like once, we knew we wanted to build, like say, the concert garden in Point Breeze. It started out as just a regular garden, but then, when you looked at it and where it was situated, it became the community space, because of the size of it and, what we were going to be able to do. Because it's not like a big vegetable garden, it's more of a community space with flowers and like people can hang out and, have concerts there. That's why it was called the concert garden. And it's gone through various stages of development, and now, because I was there like, I don't know, a couple weeks ago or whatever, I just went by and I was like, whoa, it looks great, and so like those spaces like that, that's when it was so essential that we had Neighborhood Gardens Trust, so that we knew it was permanently preserved, and that was when Jenny, but even before Jenny, I can't remember her name, oh man, but
Sorry.
But I'll just say like through NGT, that was key, that PHS worked with and through NGT, because then NGT could really work through the council people, and it was like, oh, when am I going to have time to do this, so it just worked out so perfectly, and in order to have the space permanently preserved.
Okay. And so when you say NGT, you also mean obviously the NGA.
NGA.
But like at the time that you're thinking of
Terry Mishovic, that was her name.
Oh,
yeah.
Her name is everywhere. That makes
Terry Mishovic, and then Jenny.
Yeah. So like you were working with Terry on the concert garden. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. I want to backtrack again. This is really, really amazing and it's great. But I wanted to ask because I know I've been told that you went on a trip to Cuba.
With Iris.
Yeah, so when was that?
Oh boy.
And or how did you just talk me through how you came to that trip a little bit, if you can.
Oh, how did we get to go to Cuba? Oh, I wish Iris was here to tell you.
Well, she might be here soon, so
Yeah.
maybe we could talk
I'm
through it at
trying
lunch.
to
But
remember, how did we get to Cuba? Was it like a grant or something? So I can't remember exactly.
that's fine. Yeah, but
But it was amazing.
yeah. Tell me about what you saw, at least from your perspective.
You from the news media, which, where else would you hear of Cuba? It was like, oh, a scary place, and Fidel Castro, was the president, and he was a terrible person, and incarcerating people, and they had to, they didn't have much food, and their sense of culture was all controlled, but when I'm trying to think, it must have been through some kind of grant that we were able to go, and but when we got there, it was totally other. It had a really amazing cultural component, and like people were so proud, to live in Cuba, and they had all of the old cars, that were all redone and painted these beautiful colors, like these pastel like blues and things like that, and they would drive them around the neighborhood, and and like the literacy level of all of the community was like I just didn't expect them to be all like discussing politics and reading. The newspaper was like the central focus in the morning in all of the big squares. A lot of the men would get together, and they'd reading the newspaper and like just discussing the politics of what was happening in Cuba, but also around the world, and how it affected them. And I learned all this from Iris, and because I don't speak Spanish, but and it just amazed me, because of all the propaganda that Americans hear about Cuba. It was just so beautiful there, and like everyone, just like their houses were pristine and like so well cared for, and it just blew me away, really. To be there, and and it was. I just wish I knew how to speak, Spanish, or because that would have made a huge difference. But it just opened up my eyes,
Yeah.
to not believe everything that you read, and people embraced, their culture. It's who they were and are. It's really amazing.
Yeah, no, to your literacy point, I think there was a study that just came out saying that 54% of people in the U.S. can't read above a 6th grade reading level.
Wow.
So your literacy point is just very, I don't know, fitting for me. And it's very interesting how you describe, like, this whole political discourse, this whole, like, vibrant culture, etc.
Yeah.
So I haven't been there, but
You have been to Cuba?
no, I have not been to Cuba, but I've read a lot about it, and so I'm glad to hear your perspective, because I do agree the U.S. media well, I'm not gonna say anything.
Yeah.
But,
Yeah.
but so I wanna say, so was that trip though partly to study agriculture?
Yes.
Yes. So
Yeah.
what did you see in that there?
They had amazing greenhouses, where, they grew all of the starts for, the food that was going to be eaten by the public, by the community. They grew as much as they could. And that was part of our trip, was to go around to the different growing centers, I'll call them, because they were also, the education centers, to teach people how to, grow their own. And, it was just like at a level of horticulture that, you would find here, and, it was all mostly centrally located, in one really big area. And then when you went out to the real, open spaces, where there would be a lot of cattle farming and, growing of palm, and, they would build their own big greenhouse operations, and they got funding, through the government to do that, so it was pretty all subsistence level, that, because at the time, they were thought of as this communist country, and, and like you get this image, that the media projects, and then when you're there, it's like, I didn't feel that, like everybody was just so friendly and, wanting to share, their culture with you, and, oh, here, have this, have that, if you went to visit someone's home, they just brought you right in and like, oh, here, we'll have, dinner with us. And we're like, well, yeah.
And so that kind of, like the agricultural stuff kind of informed stuff at Norris Square.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So this must have been before, like, the Greene Countrie Towne was declared, when you were working on Las Parcelas, or?
Let's see.
Well, what did it inform specifically, I guess, is the question.
Yeah, it's like, I wish I had the dates. I don't, I don't remember all the dates of, like, when we started Greene Countrie Townes, Like, I'm trying to remember what was the first one. I'm not sure. Yeah. But that must be somewhere in all the PHS.
It's definitely in PHS documents and whatnot. Yeah. I was more curious because it sounds like it was a very eye-opening trip for you. And so I wanted to see how, like, I know that I've been told when someone told me about this, they mentioned that it was really important for you, and you always mentioned it as such a powerful experience. So,
it's just, I think, made, mostly because of, how Cuba was portrayed, and I mean, of course, it was still, under Castro's rule, and there were probably, restrictions that, as a tour group coming in from the United States, we wouldn't have known about, but, just in terms of the people that we met, they were just so friendly and accommodating and really trying to help us understand how things worked,
Yeah. Okay. So we've talked a little bit about NSMP, and I wanted to ask what other and we talked a little bit about Point Breeze. And I think you mentioned North Philadelphia. So I wanted to ask, what other Greene Countrie Towne projects did you work on next? Or, you know, and yeah, we'll just start with that.
Yeah, I'm trying to think. Well, sort of, West Philly. Yeah, they're, what's the Warrington Garden? That was the Keystone Garden in that area.
Yeah, I wanted to ask, because you did also mention Keystone Gardens before. So how did you help that program come about and help develop those gardens?
Well, the Warrington Garden, they were pretty organized, and I think the big project that took a while to work on was the wall, as it's called. There was I don't know how tall it was, but maybe 5 or so 6-story wall that was the side of the garden. There used to be I think there was like some kind of plant or manufacturing or something there, and so the wall was like at least I don't know, it had to be like 25 foot high. Like Jenny probably could tell you from NGT, and it wasn't stabilized very well on the other side because they had torn down the property. So it was always at this point where you'd have to worry, like, okay, is it going to hold up, and how is this going to be stabilized, and it took years. And then I don't know exactly when, but eventually NGT, which owns the property, they had to bring the wall down, and then make sure it was stabilized. So that was the benefits of having NGA or NGT. It's pretty hard to stress that NGA was the same. In that, like, once the property was permanently preserved, it brought it to a new level where you could start making these major improvements, and then you knew that it was going to be there. You didn't have to worry about it being sold off, or after all this hard work, and to maintain that as a community space, that was so important.
So the Keystone Garden concept and practice was kind of developed in conversation with NGT or NGA?
Like the Keystone started first, and I don't know if I had it on my phone. I have to see, but it's I'm trying to remember who funded the Keystone program like that.
I can probably find
Yeah,
that
you
too.
could probably find that out. But once a garden was designated as a Keystone, it really helped stabilize the community, and also it helped us see oh wow, if we can get this garden stabilized and so that it won't be sold, this we can really do this, and but making them these Keystone gardens, that sort of set the tone for what we were really able to do, and what having a permanently preserved open space meant, for each of the communities wherever these gardens were, and it was always for a community. It wasn't like PHS, yes, look how great we are. I mean, which, we are, they were, and still are. But it was always, to have the community as, the lead and like, tell us what you want and let's, work with this together, So it just made a whole difference, in the communities where these gardens are.
Okay, so I wanted to, I guess, go over another specific year question and another program question that we haven't really talked about at all. So think back to 2006 and
whenever that was, yeah.
Yeah, whenever that was.
Right.
Now it would be 15 years ago.
Wow.
Yeah, it's.
What's 2006?
I believe that's the inception of City Harvest. Yeah, if you wanted to. So, do you remember anything about the development of that program and your role in it?
How did we start City Harvest? Geez, I can't think of who my coordinator was at that time, because that would make a difference. Was it Winfred or No, I don't think it was Winfred.
You mean you're like your supervisor at PHS, or?
No, like who was my coordinator? I had a coordinator that I worked with a lot. I don't think it was Winfred. That one I'm like not so sure.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, what do you remember of the program and how it developed over the years?
Boy, I'm like sort of drawing a blank on City Harvest. I can't believe it because I know I created it.
Well, it's hard because I'm asking you a lot of questions I feel like that are not related to the space that we're in, or like I guess I'm trying to think of ways to make this a sensory question. Like, what did you see there? What did you what did you see at like the first? What did you see and hear at the first? I don't know, City Harvest meeting?
I think part of it was connected to share.
Yes.
Yeah, part of it was connected to share.
That's come up. Yeah.
Yeah, and okay. So let me write that down. Yeah. I think that was a part of working with Stevana Wynn, who was the director of Share.
Yes.
Yeah. And so I spent a lot of time up there at Share, and like we helped get the greenhouse going, and they had a small vegetable garden, but that wasn't really the main purpose of like growing food there.
When you say there and up there, where specifically are you referring to?
Share was like off of like around Lehigh and Allegheny. They had a huge warehouse, and Share's main role was to buy major bulk food products, like instant milk, all of that kind of stuff, and that was distributed to other smaller community organizations, and then the community organizations in their specific areas would distribute the food to the community. So we helped share to get the greenhouse that is up there so that they could grow, some of the plants, on. But I mean that operation, compared to the hugeness and the breadth of, people that share assisted, that small little footprint was just actually, with a greenhouse, was there to like help people see, this is how a greenhouse works, because we couldn't never produce the amount of food that share needed. But it was more of an example. But once I was up at Share, and you just saw the level of assistance that they were providing to a lot of Philadelphia. It was just eye-opening, because it's just not something that you think about every day. How many people are food insecure, and Stevana Wynn, did you ever hear her name? She was the director. She was amazing. She was a tough cookie, but she had such a big heart, but she ran that whole operation, and did an amazing job. Just an amazing person.
So City Harvest kind of sprung from, you and Stevana, like figuring out how to get more fresh food, because obviously the greenhouse could not produce.
No,
Yeah.
no, but the food really wasn't like fresh food.
Right. The
Yeah.
food that they were distributing wasn't
Yeah.
fresh food.
Mm-hmm. But like the greenhouse was there more as a demonstration, to help people understand. And then then Glenwood Garden,
Green
was so close, to that operation that, that's where, we would really take, people that would be interested in growing, or we would take, groups that would come from other states, like they were touring around, and so we would take them to Glenwood, since that's such a big space, and like here's this whole block community garden where people are growing, not just because they like to grow food, but because it is part of their daily diet. This is what they eat, and they're growing it there, and that's why I always loved the Glenwood Garden. It provided so much camaraderie for all the gardeners. They really shared their experiences together, and seed, and do you know about this? If this is a new variety of cabbage or something, everyone just really shared, and it's a really great garden.
Yeah. It's a great place, and I'd love to get interviews over there if they hadn't had so many. They had a few interviews recently.
They did?
Yeah.
Is Mel still there?
I don't know.
Mel? Oh.
I don't know. I know Darlene Marcus
Darlene
and Vi Thomas.
and Vi. Mm-hmm.
Yes. Darlene is actually on the advisory board for this project.
Good.
Yes. But we've talked through City Harvest, and how that got developed and started with Glenwood and whatnot, and Share. I wanted to ask, again, I want to bring it back to Las Parcelas and Norris Square. And so do you have any favorite stories about Las Parcelas, or working with Iris and Tomasita, and the other gardens at Norris Square?
Well, I remember when all of the, big gardens, it was developed, and we were saying, oh, now it's Norris Square, Greene Countrie Towne. And we had this big celebration. And this was the first time that my mother came to see what I was doing. And because my parents live at the shore, at the Jersey Shore. And, so she had never really seen what I was doing, So she came up and brought my younger sister. And it was for the dedication, when everything was done. And, my mother is a very fun, open kind of person. And, when I said, Mom, this is what I've been working on for these 3 years, and she was just like, oh my gosh. And, she just, it gave her a whole new appreciation, for who I was, because she had no idea, that I knew that much about vegetables. And, at the shore, there's not a lot of gardening going on. And I don't know, she was just really taken aback, by how amazing it was, that we could build this whole infrastructure and, give, work with the community to do this. She was so proud. Yeah.
Yeah. So what has your involvement been like with Norris Square, since the bulk of the gardening work, since the bulk of the gardens were established through 2006?
Mm-hmm. You mean, so,
since El Colobo came to be, so that's, to my understanding, the last garden was built, but how have you followed up with Norris Square since then?
I guess it would just be checking in with Iris and Tomasita when she was around, and just stopping by, making sure, how's everything going, is it, my number if you need anything, because once I was done a big project like that, I moved on to the next one, wherever that was, so, everything, my whole focus was, say in Point Breeze or, at Glenwood or, some other location. So, but then I would always oh, I'm going to be driving by Norris Square, so I'll stop in and see how everybody is or what's going on. And,
Yeah.
I mean, everybody knew they could just call me if something was going on.
Yeah, how have the gardens here changed since you helped develop them?
I think the fun part is to see how it's all, personalized by each community, and how they really make it their own garden. It's not this, it sort of starts out as a cookie cutter, because you can only fit this much in this, square footage space. But when it becomes personalized and, it's the flavor of that community or this person's ideas, and, that's the fun part to see, how it becomes integrated into the community, and what it means to that community to have that garden. Yeah.
That's good. So I guess I wanted to ask, I know that you are no longer working for PHS directly. We're living in Philadelphia, but what future hopes do you have for, the NSMP gardens, such as Las Parcelas?
Well, hopefully the funding continues, and so this is where I'm not sure with PHS, once a project is completed, and say if there were a storm and the roof blew off of, the casita or whatever, would there be funding there, through like the Keystone program, to help restore that, or, some gardens, like the smaller gardens, they, like in Point Breeze, there's a lot of small gardens there. And, pretty much the community seems to be able to, provide, assistance, like, if the fence needed to be repaired, But I would think that it depended on whether the garden was permanently preserved through NGT or not, and like how much funding source, NGT can provide, which, kind of hard with all of the gardens out there. But that's, the good part is that when a garden is permanently preserved, and it gives it a little more weight, when you can talk to the council person, see what's up with them, and like how important that space is in that neighborhood and what that means, and like could you, find a few dollars, to help us repair this, or put up a new mural, or to like further the the council person's involvement. I think that's really key, to the program continuing, is to make sure the council person knows what's happening in their neighborhood, And I think Jenny and NGT does a good job of that, So.
Ensuring political support.
Yeah, that is key.
Okay. Well, thank you so much. This has been a really informative interview for me.
Oh, thank you.
And yeah, it's been a pleasure talking with you, Eileen. So I'm going to have you fill out some forms quickly, but first I'm going to turn the recorder off.
All right.